Alright, so today's video, hopefully the audio is gonna sound a lot better, and that we got a bit of a background. I decided that the plain video was a little bit too boring. So today's topic, hold up, let me. Today's topic is going to be about depression. Kind of a heavy subject, I'm not gonna lie, and you know I don't really think it is that heavy. I don't really think it is that deep. And I do absolutely understand that there is a lot of people who are severely depressed and it cripples them. It is chronic. It does things to their life that, you know, it is unpleasant. I do understand that. And I understand that because I myself am diagnosed with major depressive disorder. But here's the thing, and this is the thing that not a lot of people are going to like for me to say. But if you are severely depressed and you're not doing anything about it, you are a pussy. I'm just going to say how it is. I'm saying it how it is. I really, truly do believe that if you are somebody who is allowing their depression to eat away at their lives, that it's your fault, more or less. Now, what do I mean when I say this? What do I mean in terms of, why is, letting depression get to me make me a pussy? I simply just think that it's a matter of mentality, and this kind of goes back into a little bit of what I was talking about in my I Hate Fat People video that I just made. But, when you are living a life full of depression, full of negativity, and you allow that to consume yourself, what does that look like? It looks like you hanging out with people who allow yourself to wallow in that negativity. It looks like you not doing anything. Maybe it's not having a job. Maybe it's not going to school. Maybe it's not being part of a community. And when I think of people being depressed, I don't really think of, like your average, suburban white dad or anything like that. you know, if you think about some like suburban white dad, right, goes to church on Sundays, white picket fence, everything like that, the full American dream. He's not depressed because he has a job, he has purpose, he has a family who love and support him, he has things that he can stand on when he's down, and he has community. And I'm not gonna touch on religion too much, but you know people who find themselves within community are typically happier because they have a sense of belonging. And I think the cure to depression is finding your sense of belonging. And that could be, a fandom. That could be, church service. That could be student organizations or just school in general. Maybe it's a friend group. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's, just some kids in the block that you play with. And I think that is the ultimate cure to depression. It's never going to be some sort of SSRI. It's never going to be some sort of, dopamine heavy drug that you take. It's going to be something that makes you feel like you belong on planet Earth. When I used to deal with a lot of depression, a lot of my thoughts went to who's going to miss me when I'm gone? Who cares about me? Who wants to see me do better? Who is there for me? It's never about I hate myself. It's never about it was never about, introspection, but more so retrospection. It was about the things that made me feel more collected and full as a person. And I think a lot of the things that people say in the face of depression, a lot of the usual things of like, cheer up, man, it gets better, or you'll get through it, or you're strong. Those are all things every single depressed person always hears. Every single one. I've always heard them. And those things don't help. They don't help because Sure, yeah. At the core, I believe every person has strength. Every person has their own strength of character and other things like that. But it goes so much more deeper than that. When I was super into my depression, and again, I'm speaking a lot from experience here. This is all just really just what I have to say about me. I felt that, you know, when it came to my family, they didn't really want me around. When it came to my friends, they wouldn't miss me if I was gone. When it came to the environment I was in or the community I was a part of, it felt like, I could disappear off the face of the earth and no one would care about me or care for me or miss me. And one thing that I know for sure is that that's not true. It's not true at all. Somebody is going to miss you when you're gone. It doesn't matter who's watching this video. It could be some Chinese guy, in Hong Kong. It could be somebody I know. It could be anybody. But whoever out there in the universe, every single person, somebody is going to miss you when you're gone. It could be somebody small. It could be somebody super close to you. It could be somebody you've never even really spoken to in your life. It could be somebody you don't even know. But somebody is going to miss you when you're gone. There's this old poster in Canada about missing people, and I remember it said something along the lines of, and if I can find it, I'll throw a photo of it up on here, but it said something along the lines of, going missing is not illegal, but you will break somebody's heart. And I think about that. I think about that quote every now and then, that quote on that poster. Because all it was just advertising, people going missing, just don't disappear. Somebody's going to miss you when you're gone. But it's very profound to me in the sense that everybody has an impact in this world. A lot of people who deal with depression, they talk about the scale of how insignificant they are, how that when they'll be gone, they're just another speck in the universe that has countless of millions of stars with countless of millions of other planets. And I think that's such a toxic way of thinking, because if you treat yourself like you are insignificant to the world, then you're going to treat yourself like you're insignificant to yourself. It all starts with how you feel about yourself. I'm not perfect. I have a lot of things to dislike about myself. I have a lot of things that I do currently actively don't like about myself. But I see those flaws. I know that they exist. Even if they don't to others. Even if I'm the only one who sees them. I see those flaws. But I see the other things that I bring to the table. I'm funny. I'm smart. I overcome challenges when I'm faced with them. I do, in a lot of ways, bring about positivity, if not to others, at least to myself. And I think that's a very important step to battling depression. Depression is a very odd subject because, it can be construed with a lot of other things. It can be construed with the emotion depression. It can be construed with, middle school angst or teenage angst. And let's not beat around the bush. If you're young, if you're very, very young, we're talking prepubescent to then on, a lot of the depression that middle schoolers have, it's just hormones, honestly. And I'm happy to be able to say that because, when I was in middle school, I felt like, oh my God, everything is so bad and it's never going to get better. And then when I was in high school and I was still a little bit depressed, I thought, oh my God, everything is so bad and it's not going to get better. And then at some point, it does. I'm not going to sit here and say that just like, oh, just wait it out and, you'll feel fine, everything will get better. Because there is certain scenarios and situations that bring about just absolute negativity that are just horrible to live in. And I understand that. But when you are knocked down by life and no one else is there to pick you up, you need to be able to do it for yourself. You need to be able to get up on your feet and keep going forward. You need to be able to look at yourself and say, I fell and it hurts. Acknowledge that hurt. Acknowledge that it sucks. Acknowledge that it feels shitty to feel shitty. It's okay to feel shitty. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to feel upset and mad and angry and sorrowful, maybe even vengeful about certain things. It's okay to feel that, but you have to acknowledge those feelings. You have to acknowledge that you feel that way before you can then actually go and do something about it. I feel that a lot of the times that I was depressed and self-harming and in suicidal ideation, it really just was a lot of me not wanting to do better. Yeah, I wanted to get better. Yeah, I didn't want to feel that way. But what was I doing for myself in the moment? I wasn't doing a lot. I was arguing with my family. I was being self-destructive and impulsive. And I did all these dumb things. And maybe, it's a lot of that has shaped me into who I am today. But the big part of why, despite still dealing with major depressive disorder and not, wanting to off myself every other day, is because I've taken my life into my own hands. I think a big thing that I'm going to be repeating myself over and over in these videos is that your life is 80% decisions and 20% things that just happen to you. And I think that's one of the most true things that can ever be said ever, because how I chose to react while battling the worst of my depression, it wasn't healthy. It didn't do anything for me. I fell big into using drugs, especially marijuana. And when you're depressed and you're using substances as an escape, it really doesn't do a lot for you. It really just makes things worse. It really clouds your judgment, and it impacts you in such negative ways. And I know that there's thousands, millions of people struggling with depression, and they're trying to self-medicate. But there's a spectrum to it, I've seen people fall into the worst and worst of it. Absolutely just the worst. Falling into super hardcore drugs, falling into absolutely dangerous environments, and not trying to get better. But at some point, you have to be willing to say to yourself that you're not some teenager anymore. You're not some middle school kid anymore. You're not some person who's just trying to find a will to live. At some point, you have to start living, and then you'll find the will to live. I didn't have much going for me, so I started working, and I tried to just graduate high school. And those were the only two goals I really had in my mind. Just money, graduate school. I mean, since birth, basically, my parents hammered it into me that school is the most important thing in your life. School is the only thing you should focus on. And I just kind of accepted it. Well, shit, I got nothing left. I don't have anything going for me. I'm not in any teams. I'm not in any big friend groups. I feel ostracized by my peers, I'm in a bad relationship, but all I really had going for me was school and then work. And I bounced around from job to job. I felt shitty on certain days and stuff like that. But then I graduated high school, and it set in for me. I've got my life to live. I have a life to live. And all of a sudden, my life became so much more than that. It became, what school do I want to go to after high school? What career do I want for myself? How am I going to make an impact further than just being alive? And when people are facing depression, they try to battle with themselves on the idea of what is the point to live. I'm no God. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not a therapist. But in my opinion, the will to live, or the reason for living, or the reason for your existence, is to exist. It's to live. Say yes to things. Go out, do stuff, push yourself out of your boundaries. Take that risk. I'm not saying be super impulsive and do stupid things. I've done enough of that. Do as I say, not as I do. But I find that when I'm able to just say, sure, why not? Might as well. All of a sudden, I've got something going for me. All of a sudden, I'm at some random bowling event. All of a sudden, Now I'm catching fucking Pokemon on Pokemon Go. All of a sudden now I've got friends. All of a sudden now I've got a community. All of a sudden now there's people who support me and think like me and want to see me do better. And it's because I said to myself, I need to do something. People who are severely depressed, I find, are in a couple subsets of, thinking or living. And like I said, this doesn't include absolutely everyone and it's not set in stone, but I feel that there's the people who deal with their depression silently and they don't ever speak on it, they don't ever say anything about it, you don't even know that they are. There's the people who, you can tell that they're depressed. It's their whole personality, essentially. I say that in such a mean way, but I don't mean it like that. I'm more so referring to the people on Discord who go into those vent channels and they're talking about, guys, I did it again, and they show you the worst awful photo you've ever seen on your life. You couldn't even find shit on LiveLeak that bad. And then there's the people who they are depressed. They know they're depressed, but they're content with that. They're happy. They might be one of the happiest motherfuckers you know. And I find that, sure, the world can be a cruel place. Sure, there's bad, awful, evil people out there. But everybody's so concerned with everyone else. Everybody's so concerned with, what is this person going to think? What is that person going to think? What are you going to think? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? I think a good example of this is people in the gym, and what I mean by that is there's people who have a gym membership. Maybe they go twice a week. Maybe they go once a month. But, it's something. It's something. They can say that they do it. Then there's the people who don't go at all. Maybe they have a membership. Maybe they don't use it at all. And then there's the people who go consistently. And the people who never go, the people who can go, the people who can afford to go or just choose not to. Those people are typically less happy with themselves. And you will find that the people who consistently go every day, no matter what size they are, even if they're, medically or obese or if they're the most jacked bodybuilder you've ever seen, they're happy with themselves because they're choosing to work on themselves constantly. They choose to put in the effort in their lives. And maybe they're not doing it for someone else. Maybe they're doing it for some competition they have on the side with their friends. Maybe they're doing it just because they want to look better. Maybe they're doing it just because they feel like it's a good, healthy thing to do. Those people are always so much more happier and content with themselves because at the end of the day, when they're laying in their bed and they could be doing anything else, they said to themselves, I feel like making myself do hard work. Hard work, honestly, is, and maybe that's what I should be saying more. Hard work and putting your time and energy and focus into something that impacts you positively. That's going to be what helps you. I was on the phone a moment ago, and my friend brought up how, that there's certain people who don't have a whole lot to be depressed about, yet they're still like the most depressed person you know. And when it comes to those people, I really feel truly like that's the epitome of like it's your fault, because like there's people who they have the worst family situation, they have the worst things going on in their lives. Maybe they're victims of some sort of tragedy or something else like that, and they don't let it impact themselves as much as other people do. And I I can attest that to myself. I don't have the best family life. I have a lot of issues with my mother, and I don't let that day to day affect me or who I am or what I'm gonna think about my life or my daily every day. There's people out there who allow themselves to get sucked into this negativity, and I feel like that's really the issue with depression in the modern day. It's not that we don't talk about mental health enough, it's that we don't talk about what to do about mental health enough. I feel truly, genuinely, the best way to actually overcome depression or overcome anxieties, worries, fears, challenges in your life is to look at it as something to get over, not get through. Look at it as something you got to work hard for. You know, if you've got some sort of issue in your life that's dragging you down, obesity, relationship issues, anything like that, drug addiction, so many other things that could be affecting you in your life, allowing yourself to be brought down by it and not asking yourself, what can you do to make yourself better? That's that's where you fall into that spiral of allowing negativity to take control of your life. There's a good quote by JFK, and maybe I'm just, brain dead, and the only reason I remember it is because of Call of Duty Zombies. But the quote essentially is, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what can you do for your country. And I know that's kind of way off the scope of what I'm talking about here right now, but I think it's a good quote because you shouldn't be asking yourself what can be done for you. What can you do for you? I think a lot of people miss out on that. I think a lot of people miss out on that self-actualization of every issue going on in your life. It can't. You can do something about it. No one can change you. You can change you, and there's not enough people working on changing themselves. You know, I I feel that when it comes to negativity and depression and anxiety and struggle in this world, sometimes you just have to stop and see the forest for the trees. You have to stop and not think to yourself, my God, there's this huge fucking problem ahead of me. You have to think to yourself, there's a huge challenge for me to undertake. In religion, the idea that God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers is a noble one because what you're dealing with, you can do something about it. You might not overcome it right then and there. You might not just completely overcome your worries or negativities, but you have to fight. You have to fight. The whole idea of the human condition and the human spirit is that simple one word idea: perseverance. Persevere through depression. Persevere through your negativities and your worries and your relationships and your troubles and your issues and all the things that are bringing you down. You need to be able to lift yourself up. You need to be able to lift yourself up. Because in that proverbial cliff that you're dangling off of depression, what if there's not somebody there who's going to be able to pick up your hand and bring you to solid ground? You need to be strong enough to at least try to climb up. I I truly do feel that when it comes to issues plaguing modern society, one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one, is there's not enough pressure on people to be better. I think people need to try to want to be better, to try to achieve success, to try to work hard for themselves. And, maybe you've got a family. Maybe you've got people who are counting on you and relying on you. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for them. Do it for your friends. Do it for the people who care about you. Because at the end of the day, going back to what I said moments ago, somebody is going to miss you. Somebody cares about you. Somebody wants to see you do well. So do them and yourself a favor and try to do well. Try to be a better man, a better woman, a better person, a better human. Don't think of yourself as a tiny speck in a universe that's unforgiving and cruel. Think of yourself as the main character in your life. Because at the end of the day, when your story is said and done and the last chapter's been written, are you going to be somebody who actively participated in your life? Or are you just going to be somebody? Are you going to be the main character of your story? Because no one else is. And your story needs a main character. I truly think that if you allow yourself to be swallowed by depression and you consistently make the choice to not improve or do something better, or try to improve on your situation, if you don't try to make the world a better place than you left it, that's just a waste. And I hate nothing more than people wasting themselves, because everybody's got potential. Everybody has the potential to be an awesome, functioning member of this world. We are all a collective. As a human race, we all should aspire to be better. That's why we are able to do the things we are today. That's why I'm able to sit in front of a computer and record a video and post it online for people, because we as a human race decided over and over and over again to improve. It's within our nature. It's within the very fiber of our being. Improving, and constantly working for better and striving for more. And we don't see enough of that nowadays. That's why I think if you let depression take over your life, you're a pussy. Because at the core of every human being is that indomitable human spirit to pursue happiness, to pursue greatness, to pursue better than what happened yesterday. So when you wake up tomorrow, try to be better than who you were the night before.